is a banger, I'm gonna have to say no. Boring. No. I watch Planet Chaser Starlight Excellent all day, every day. All day, every day. Yo, the hell was that? Anyways, this looks cool. Yo, the year is 1991. America's television is filled with shows that will later go on to be considered future classics. I mean, around this time we had Roseanne, Cheers, The Fresh Prince, Simpsons, all shows with a big emphasis on family, funny and awkward situations, and learning valuable lessons. But with all these lessons and morals, there was a certain void that was left that needed to be filled. Viewers were growing tired of all the family-friendly crap and wanted something more rough, gritty, and drama-filled. But from beyond the horizon, one man would come to save both daytime television and, more likely, your auntie from boredom.
That baby got the same head as you and the same eye. But take the test. Take the test. In the case of the little baby.
Well, the test says that is your baby.
How you doing?
On September 9th, 1991, the Maury Show would hit the airwaves. Initially being something more akin to Ellen or Oprah, by bringing on celebrity guests to give them a moment to give their testimonies on what it's like to live in the spotlight, while also bringing on some less than average families to air out their dirty laundry.
If it bothers you that your stepmother is the same age as you, call us at 1-800-593-2000.
The show would later evolve into the show that we know today, filled with paternity tests, lie detector tests, misbehaved teens, and the ever-shocking Where Are They Now episodes. So, today I figured we take a look at some of the craziest stories that this show had to offer in its 31-year runtime. But before we get into that, we have to answer the question that I think's on all of our minds. Who exactly is Maury Povich, and how did he get his own show? Maurice Richard Povich was born in Washington, D.C. on January 17, 1939. Son of the renowned journalist and sports writer Shirley Povich of the Washington Post, it's not too far-fetched to say that journalism runs in this man's veins. In his early career, he would find a passion for journalism through being a radio reporter for the WWDC station. But eventually, Maury would move on to the big leagues by becoming an actual news reporter for shows like Panorama and A Current Affair.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maury Povich, and welcome to this special edition of A Current Affair.
Around this time is when Maury would start to notice that he was gaining some popularity in the eyes of the public. And by 1991, he would go on to co-produce his very own show. On September 9th, 1991, the Maury Povich Show would go on to take the world by storm. But it was far from the show that we all know. Believe it or not, the show's very first lie detector test wouldn't happen until its second week of production. And the show's very first paternity test wouldn't happen for another 7 years. In its earlier years, the show would tackle controversial topics like terror on the highway and the naughty girls of rock and roll. Remember guys, this was the early 90s, so stuff like this was still considered controversial. But eventually the show would grow into its roots, becoming the drama-filled, backstage running, crazy celebrations having show that we all know and love. But let's be real, you're not here for the show's backstory. You're here for the drama and the crazy stories that this show had to offer. So, let's get down to the nitty-gritty with our very first story. Alright, coming out the gate swinging. This story is centered around a 19-year-old Monique, who had recently got into a committed relationship with a 35-year-old Callie. Well, not long into their relationship, Monique would suspect Callie of cheating on her with her very own mother, Viola. The cause of these suspicions would come from Callie claiming that Viola was coming on to him whenever Monique wasn't around. Meanwhile, Viola would claim that it was Callie that was coming on to her. It's a lot of he said, she said in this one. Alongside the family love triangle, Monique would already suspect Callie of cheating due to ongoing rumors, cryptic Facebook posts, and poorly explained body markings.
We laying on the bed talking. I said, Callie, where all these scratches come from? I said, baby, them mosquito bites. Just a damn lie.
After a lot of back and forth between Monique and Callie, it was finally time to meet Viola. Viola would come out and explain to Monique that Callie had touched her butt, breast, and thigh, but not with his hands, but with his eyes. But with all this drama reaching a boiling point, it was finally time for the lie detector test. Not only did the lie detector test confirm Monique's suspicions about Callie cheating, but it would actually go on to confirm that Viola actually was making advances towards Callie. Although Callie never indulged in any of these advances, it still did not make up for the fact that he was cheating in the first place. Monique, rightfully upset, would go on to promise an ass whooping for the both of them once they got back to their home of South Carolina.
Both y'all niggas gonna get clapped up when I get back. Both of y'all niggas.
There were several cases of infidelity amongst family members, so much so that it didn't really feel like a Maury episode without one of these infamous stories. But sometimes these situations left you with an even more dire consequence than a potential ass whooping. Sometimes these situations left you with something much more serious. What exactly? Well, a baby. In this special episode of Maury centered all around revenge cheating, we meet with Jessica. Jessica comes to the show to get a paternity test between her ex-boyfriend Larry and her 11-month-old son. See, back in the early parts of their relationship, Larry would go on to cheat on Jessica several times, even going as far to get another woman pregnant. Yikes. Outraged, Jessica, in a self-admitted moment of weakness, would go on to cheat on Larry. With who, you might ask? Well, none other than the man who had been feeding her all this information on Larry's wrongdoings, his very own cousin Terrence. Of course, shortly after this affair, Jessica would go on to become pregnant. But after giving birth to her baby, she would question who the father of her child really was. Jessica desperately wanted to believe that the father of her child was Larry, but admitted that the baby resembled Terrence a lot more. Well, imagine Jessica's surprise when both of these men would go on to deny her child. After a lot of back and forth, Maury would finally get to the DNA test.
Larry, you are not the father. Terrence, you are the father.
Yes, in a surprise twist, it would come out that Terrence actually was the father of Jessica's child. But Maury wouldn't just stop at lie detector tests and paternity tests. He actually had special dedicated episodes to the rehabilitation of misbehaved teens. Strap on your army boots and put on your fatigues, cause we're going to boot camp. In the show's earlier years, Maury would go on to bring in a group of distraught parents. These parents all suffered from the same issues: out-of-control teens with bad attitudes. These teens' problems usually varied from teen to teen, from going into something as simple as fighting to full-on prostitution. Well, luckily for them, Maury had just the answer to whip these teens right back into shape. 48 intense hours in a military-style boot camp. Upon their arrival, these teens would suffer from some of the worst ABBAB I think I've ever witnessed.
ABBAB. Always be berating and belittling.
While at boot camp, these teens would start their days off with a 6 a.m. wake-up call and would spend the next 2 days under the intense and harsh supervision of their military-trained instructors. After dragging themselves out of their concrete cells, that's right, you heard me, cells, the teens would go on to clean the surrounding area. Then afterwards, engage in intense physical workouts in less than desirable weather. And after their rough day, the teens would unwind with a counseling session, where they would make promises and vow to turn their life around. After the 2 days were up, the teens were reunited with their parents, a changed person. Except, not really. While to some, this 48 hours was enough of a wake-up call for them to get their lives together, others would have to come back for another session of Maury's military-style boot camp. But these out-of-control teens weren't the only ones known for their multiple appearances. See, while there were teens that may have needed another dose of guidance, there were far more adults that needed even more guidance. While Maury was known for holding people accountable for their infidelity and oftentimes the product of said infidelity, aka a baby, there were often times where these men genuinely weren't the fathers, leaving the mothers unsatisfied and unsure to who the father of their child really was. And there is no better example of this than with the lead of our next and final story, Shalonda. Shalonda Parker, whose very first appearance would be all the way back in September 2004, was an avid participant on the Maury Show. Initially, she would come onto the show to confess to her husband Terrell that their daughter Kayla might not actually be his. After having what she would claim to be a one-time affair, the DNA test would go on to prove that Terrell was in fact not Kayla's father. In her second appearance, she would go on to confess to Terrell that she had actually lied about it being a one-time affair and that she had actually slept with over 6 different guys. She would come back to the show and test each of these 6 potential fathers, and it turns out none of them were the father either. She would then come back to the show again to confess to Terrell that one night at a party she had one too many to drink and that she's actually unsure of how many guys she slept with that night. Shalonda would then go on to hold the record for the most appearances in the show's history, coming in at a whopping 19 times and having 20 paternity tests. While she would go on to prove that Terrell was the father of 2 out of the 3 children that they had, she would unfortunately never find the father to her daughter Kayla. In her final appearance, Shalonda would go on to lose 150 pounds, looking like a whole new woman. But this time, it was Terrell that had a secret of his own to share. The secret was, after multiple affairs on Shalonda's end, Terrell would do some cheating himself. And not only did he cheat on her, but he cheated on her with her very own daughter, Deanna. And not only did he cheat on her with her very own daughter, but he thinks that he might be the father to Deanna's 2-year-old son.
He wanted to tell you everything. Go ahead, Terrell, finish off. Finish it off.
Finish. Baby Sire's my son.
After finding out all of this, Shalonda was distraught. Shalonda would vow that the marriage between her and Terrell was officially over. Deanna would hit the stage and claim that all of this was an act of revenge. See, earlier in her life, Deanna claims that her mother slept with one of her boyfriends. Well, Maury would finally come out and put all of this to rest by bringing out the DNA test. And Terrell was not the father. Well, I believe that's all the time that I have today. But before we go, I do have just one bonus entry, and that would of course be the sexy decoy. To be completely honest, I forgot this used to be a segment on this show. But as Maury was giving out paternity tests and lie detector tests, he also had a third test in place. He was sending a sexy decoy into the green rooms alongside the alleged cheater. The main objective for this decoy was to test the subject's loyalty. More often than not, the cheater would end up falling for the bait. But there were some instances where people did not engage with this decoy at all, even to go as far as to have a marriage proposal in one of them. Now, I couldn't find these examples, but trust me, they're out there. Well, that is officially all the time that I have today, guys. I would like to thank you all once again for all the support, all the love that you guys have been showing on these videos. Please let me know in the comments below, do you have a favorite Maury story? What do you remember from this show? I would love to hear you guys' responses. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more content like this, please go ahead and subscribe. I actually have another video in the works already, so stick around for that. And yeah, I think that's it, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. But with all these lessons and morals, there was a certain void that was left that needed to be filled within the viewers, while also bringing on some less. Okay, it's not a bloopers without me burping. I don't know what's wrong with me. Meanwhile, Viola would finally come out and explain to Callie, no, Viola, because Callie's a girl's name to me. Like, the fuck are you, grown ass man sitting here with the name Callie? Man, change that shit. Like, the fuck. There were several. It's just so, it's like, it's too many R's in that sentence.